Okay, so good evening, everyone. Just give me a minute. I'll share the screen and we will start. Just a second. So we were talking about the indifference curve analysis, or you can say the ordinal approach, right, of Higgs. So today we'll be discussing about the consumer's equilibrium under the cardinal utility, or through your indifference curve analysis, we will see how a consumer is able to reach his equilibrium. Okay. Now, what is consumer like? When is he said to be in equilibrium? When yesterday we also talked about the budget line and the price line. So a consumer is at the equilibrium when, with the given income which he has, he is able to buy the optimum combination of goods. And under this indifference curve approach, there are certain assumptions which we made when we talk about the consumer equilibrium. One of them is that whatever income he has, he is going to spend all of it on purchasing these combination of goods. Okay, so let's see first what are the assumptions when we talk about consumer equilibrium, or the consumer maximizing his satisfaction. Consumer equilibrium. Okay, so the main assumptions are, first and foremost, is that the consumer has a given indifference curve, and he is going to select from those given combination of commodities only. So the IC curve, indifference curve, is given, and consumer will prefer between these combinations only. Okay, then the another assumption is that he has a fixed amount of money and he has to spend it, and he has to spend the entire money on these goods. So there is no concept of your savings under this analysis. Okay, so whatever income, we should say that consumer's income is given. Consumer income is given, and he spends his entire income upon these goods. Okay, then the other assumption is that the prices of the goods are given and they are going to remain constant for him. He cannot influence the prices of the goods by buying more or less of them. Okay, so another assumption is that prices are given and they are not influenced by consumer preferences. By consumer preferences. Okay, and last but not the least, the assumption of homogeneity, that goods are homogeneous and divisible. Okay, goods are homogeneous and divisible. So based upon these assumptions, if we see how and where the consumer will find his equilibrium, so it is going to be basically, suppose, let's say, a consumer is, wait, let's say this is the budget line of the consumer, and he has different indifference curves. he has IC1, then there is an indifference curve, IC2, then he has IC3, and last but not the least, let's say he has IC4. Okay, so the consumer will be, there are different points over here. Let's say there's this point on the budget line. Let's call this as S. Let's call this T. Let's call this one as A. Okay. On the y-axis, let's call this point as BL. And over here, we have good X. And over here, we have good Y. So the budget line or the price line for the consumer over here is, the price line is BL. So there are different points which are going through this budget line. There is this point S which is intersecting the budget line. Then there is A, there is T, and then there is, let's call this point as Q. So what is the consumer going to prefer? Where the consumer will be at equilibrium, he is going to be at equilibrium at this point Q. The reason being, see, he cannot be at equilibrium on this IC1A because in the properties of indifference curve, we all had studied that higher indifference curve is going to provide him higher level of satisfaction. So of course he'll move on to IC2. IC2 pe bhi he will not be at equilibrium because there is this IC3. So consumer is at equilibrium when his budget line is tangent to the indifference curve, and IC4 तो उसके लिए unachievable है. So this tangency, this point Q, shows the slope of the budget line. Okay, and IC3 are equally. This shows that slope of the budget line and the slope of the indifference curve is equal. So what actually basically point Q is depicting? My point Q is depicting that my marginal rate of substitution of XY is equal to my price of good X upon my price of good Y. This is the equilibrium point for the consumer. Okay, then there are also your second order condition. What is this? Is the first order condition of consumer's equilibrium. The second order condition of consumer equilibrium is that at the point of tangency, my indifference curve should be convex to the origin. Okay, so what I just said, that the second order condition is at point of tangency, my IC curve must be convex to origin. Can you tell me what does convex to origin means? What does that depict? Quickly tell me, I have told you this. What does convexity of indifference curve show? Tell me, what does, when I say that indifference curve should be convex to origin, what does that show? Diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Very good, Sandhya. Okay, but then there are also certain exceptions to it, where we call them as our corner solutions. There are exceptions to this. So let us look at those exceptions, and we call them as corner solutions. Now, the reason the corner solution is that in these, there are two exceptions wherein the consumer is entirely, out of the two products, they are entirely purchasing just one product, either good X or good Y. So in that case, what happened, that indifference curve, the tangency is going to be on either of the axis Okay, so why does this happen? The reason for not purchasing a commodity by the consumer may be that the price or the opportunity cost for of that particular commodity is too high. Okay, so one may likely one may like to have that, but they actually cannot purchase it because the prices are too high. For example, let's say